I like to thank anyone that liked anything that I posted up via the PlayStation Network, because I don't know how to explain other than how I post in terms of terminology that's used against someone who had said surgeries, and even if it's embarrassing, so be it, but I know if you took a picture within the realm of the scalps in terms of photos, that you could take a photograph, you get achievement unlocked via the Aldi coupe car, one of the Aldi cars. But I just figured it wasn't worth going through the list of things, because this game's been out since 2017, and I had my first live stream was live streaming this via something that I had bought the camera thing back then. I said I was gonna give up singing because it seemed so out there to put into words something that you made off just basically for things that you had ideas from, but figured it wasn't worth it if no one takes it seriously. And my channel is like basically not as like well balanced in terms of me just basically posting things that I was able to go and accomplish back then before we moved 2 years ago. Yeah. Now I was discouraged by people that I once kind of knew. wish it would play the music, but I know copyright goes with anything when you play stuff. That's why I didn't cover songs, because I didn't want my channel to be striped down. And when I did have music on it, I figured it's like TikTok in terms of stuff that you post, it covers it. was long. 15 minutes.
I'm rocking.
It's not as engaging as if like something you put your mind set to and try to. so well. It wasn't stolen. If the game came out in 2017, you have to grind all the way to get the stage unlocked. 2018, I came in first place. It reached level 25 and recorded it all on my Facebook profile and one on my account via here, so I figured it wasn't worth boasting about this stuff. But I heard somebody say something, and like, if it was them, they would post that too, so I figured you have to learn somehow. So 2017 through 2018, I posted via live streams that it was really me playing it back then before we had moved, and then I stopped live streaming. Then we were out Final Fantasy VII Remake. I went back and live streamed that, but figured something that Sony wrote to me in between the times of saying that they would hear from Gran Turismo players that played their game, and I was the guy that played it. So I figured if I had known that you had to watch 2 videos instead of like racing circuit, like how etiquette thing, you basically have to just watch 2 videos, I would have done it years ago. It isn't stolen from anybody. They had receipts and posted under my first and last name that I no longer have, but since GameStop, you can go back on their list of things that you bought and had an account since 2010. Even back then, had years ago, back before it was EB Games. All that stuff's on there, so I figured if something does occur where they try to claim that, they can't do that because what you posted via the internet can come back to haunt you. But if they're just basically rude and inconsiderate, then I had my banking information like Evan had on his account back then, and only spent like $10 on a character that was the only one that Street Fighter allowed to purchase separate from the series of characters and stuff. But I'm not Samatur or any of those people that I try to explain that go by the name Locks, like my profile, and disclaimer that Evan had somebody that he gave his PS4 away to his nephew, and they threw it all away in terms of stuff that they had that they could have gone somewhere with it as well. And I don't know, they can't take someone's identity because their debit card information still attached to it. I know his had his information attached to it because he rented it and watched all those Marvel movies with us back in the day. They had footage on set BlackBerry and had it attached to his Twitter as well. But I know this is going too far in terms of stuff that you post, and I knew I posted too much, but figured nothing would come of me because I was the Royals consultant for set years and really did go through that program back in high school. And they wrote a letter saying about it, and it shouldn't have been the way it was because they turned around and like said discriminatory stuff towards me and made it seem like I was basically the one that did them wrong, and they had me got therapy since 2009 onwards. Back then in 2006 I had fucked up surgery, so I figured it wasn't my fault that at the time I would eat a lot, and it wasn't really my fault in terms of stuff that occurred where I gained weight back then and lost a bunch of weight. Nobody really could take my identity because of said things that were wrong with me in terms of things that like stuff that I had posted via there. I had proof at one point in time. It would be like a shameful thing that they do that on somebody who was half blind. So even back then, I had stuff given to me by the school at that time that I was in the nurses station a lot, and Evan basically was playing the SOCOM Navy series on the PS3, and he thought he could be what they wrote to me, and we could be something like esports players before that thing was taken off. I had played in a tournament back then at Game Riot, back-to-back years of 2 tournaments that I had won. They're a radio station that doesn't seem to care anymore because they don't want to be reliable for one of their listeners getting hurt, but figured stuff that sort of like carries you through that this would have been a sure thing that you'd be signed to something with all that. And it's all just for sort of like a hobby that you're not set to be like a psychopath if you're playing the Gran Turismo game for set many hours, like 8 hours on that PlayStation profile. Back then I played it through 17 through 18 and it wasn't stolen, so I figured, I don't know why I had people on there that said those things that they linked me to their music page. It would have said something completely else if that was the case, and it's really shameful on their part of them to say accusations and stuff and make me out to be something that they can't possibly make it out to be if they made accusations up on said thing. And I kind of had proof of what they were trying to do in terms of stuff that I recorded, but figured no one took it to heart, and I tried to explain that to the cops back then, and I had nothing on my background check, so they made me a jury summons that was mailed to me twice. I got out of it the first time a couple of years back before we moved, like 3 or 4 years ago, and then they did it again. So in terms of stuff that I have nothing on my background check indicating me to be something, and I know that's like you're not supposed to say a bunch of stuff online, but figured if I had this attached to my console since 2018, it had Grinder at 2017 when it first came out, and played all the way through to get the hardest track unlocked. They know I'm that said person because I was mowing along with the same blue shirt that I had and that I still wear. That it's not really set in the motion that they could blackmail you off stuff that you write on your phone, but for whatever reason make you out to seem like the worst guy, and you haven't physically done anything towards anyone. And I was around mostly Evan and Andrew back then that I had proof of it on my YouTube. That's why I don't delete it, and I had stuff via my Facebook that I never could get off because I was live streaming, and it wouldn't allow me to basically get those live streams off, not unless you're on a desktop, and my desktop got locked, and thankfully Evan unlocked it for me out of the gracious of him being kind and the knowledge of him being able to work on computers, that he was able to do said thing via help of somebody, via instructions, that he was able to get the computer going again. And then I got it to where I would get photographs that were from 2007 through 2009 off a Gateway laptop that I didn't have that much on it because it motherboard fried on it, and back in 2008 had it still up until 2019, and then we moved, and then we got a hold of someone that Evan got his phone fixed from Apple that was able to fix computers, and he knew I didn't have anything daunting on that shit, so I figured from the looks of it he had a save file back into that 2019 or 20. So that's my story in terms of stuff that I look like the said person in the said photograph that it was from illustrations that I sketched. Because of that high school back then had said things even back then. So I don't know if, like with Kingdom Hearts and stuff, the keys and stuff, so I sketched the outlines of stuff and they realized I could sketch things, but for whatever reason, it was just bad advice on their part in terms of getting therapy and all that stuff, so. And it isn't Social Security fraud when you have said surgeries that were very fucked up at underage back then to where they could get you on because you could end up in a wheelchair without them realizing it. So I know I'm not trying to make sob stories, but I figured it's fucked up world we live in, and so I just figured from that I played video games to basically get rid of shameful people that shame you down and tell you a bunch of shit, to escape that. Like, people play different video games, like fighting games like Soul Calibur and Street Fighter, like I was doing, and basically to do something like a hobby, like to have like some sort of like thing to do. And then learning how to drive, I thought via polygamy, whatever the company that made this, the Sony first party game, that's the whole reason why I went and bought it, because I figured you could learn the basics of going through like set track and learning to maneuver a car through set time limits and stuff. And I'm not trying to sound smart, but just figured I really did accomplish this because I had the set thing from the past 2010 onwards and talked about it on Facebook. And they should hire me. I'm not bad-mouthing them, really. I know that they went through debacle with the Sony exec that was a VP that handled the online PlayStation division that got caught with somebody, and they all have stuff that they do that seems really daunting in terms of what they're saying via live streams, and don't lose their jobs. But figured I didn't lose my job at the Kaufman Foundation back then, and it wasn't like Cobra Kai in terms of stuff that I just draw the purple vehicle with the wing because of weight loss goals that I accomplished via walking, and played this during the downtime of having, I told my case manager back then I played Resident Evil, had set video, so I wasn't lying. So I don't know, they go back on this, people mark their like set things with things that they said they did, like exercise for 30 minutes to an hour on a stair climber with underwear. They check their weight to make sure that they're not like bloated or whatever, like how I was. I would swell up on something that I drank at Zona Rosa that I had proof of all that, and got like, I wouldn't say roofied, but just basically had set thing like how they read remarks and basically didn't have their names marked, so maybe they gave me a bad drink without me realizing it. And my hand, I know I have it on here, my hand turned different colors, and I had it on TikTok, so I figured they asked me if I was okay. And my hand swelled up and turned colors, and my face swelled up, and I had like set thing from back in 2019 all the way up until now that COVID was the thing, so maybe it was that, but they never really tested me for that, and I had gotten the COVID shots, the booster and the 2 shots, luckily, from all that. And I know I wear clothes from back then, but I washed them, and I don't really spill or drop any food set things on them. And basically I was a clean person up until 2019. We moved because the roof was faulty on the house, and then basically the insurance got caught up with it, like I had on the said video of me drawing that bird. Now my mom talked to somebody about it, and they couldn't really do anything up until a couple of months back, and finally everything was settled. So I know I explain too much on here, and I go post so much on Facebook, but figured if I was basically blackmailed by said organization, how come the cheerleaders allowed me, the Royals organization, film all that without realizing that they didn't confiscate it and say that, like, you can't post that because it might be like discriminatory against other people that try to do the same thing. I know Evan did the tomahawk chalk at the Chiefs rally, and he kept doing a Cecily where they go like the elbow and they go like that, and he kept doing that, and they found it sort of like wrongful, but I was able to hug cheerleaders and shit, knowingly that they knew me from back then, that they realized that all that was real. So I figured if I can go back and explain my side to someone that could hear me out, but I don't think it's open because of COVID. And I know it's all real, but you can't have that plaque with the seal printed off on a Gateway or a Dell computer with a printer like that. And I know I posted things where I was a different color because of the terminology of being sort of singled out, like the Chevy Red music video, but figured it's all too much that nobody watches what I post in terms of things that I keep getting injured off folks that are ignorant. And I said ignorant was bliss because they get away with shit that if I try something I don't get away with it. But I feel like how they make you seem like a maniac and you haven't physically like done anything that fucked up, in terms of like how I had somebody that could have signed me but he wasn't signed, but just try to do it based upon stuff that how he had a bunch of people on there. That's daunting to know that they try to claim that you stole something from him when it all had your information on it, and you had receipts posted up, and you had from GameStop. I know GameStop has it to where you can go show forth receipts and that, and it wasn't used because I bought that Star Wars bundle. That's why I wanted to keep the box, but figured it was a hassle moving everything at one point in time, and stuff gets destroyed. But how is it used if you had nobody's fingerprint other than yours on it, and it looks clean enough to where it looked brand new and it doesn't make that much noise? Because I kept it in good condition. Evan and me bought a PlayStation back then around the same time, and we had posted things via Facebook, but since it's so back then, I no longer had the videos on my Facebook page. I know stuff gets taken off pretty easily by stuff that you had for set years, and Evan didn't have anything really that bad on his BlackBerry device, and he had it since 2009 or 10 when he graduated Shawnee Mission North. I had gotten transferred out because I was living at an address where they heard my side of my story, that I was bullied at said school for 2 years, 2004, 2005, off an article they wrote that made it seem that it was just given to me when I took tests and took things, and it wasn't cheating in terms of stuff that I could do with the drawing article. But I had said weird surgery that fucked me over by bad advice by people that didn't realize it. They always do that to people. They guarantee something and then something happens, and that's what happened to me. So I figured trying on the internet, like they said, and they kept saying I lose all these games and that playing online, but I barely had PlayStation Plus, and when I did play, I did pretty well for the 10 fights that I had in Street Fighter 5, and I did extremely well for Virtual Fighter for having said eye surgery and having one fucked up eye. You can't hack this game, and they just gave a suspicious notice. That was for anyone that played this game that could basically glitch the prize money system thing, and it was basically because I grinded my way to level 25 out of 8 level to 10 to basically the amounts of things that you did via the achievement system. I don't know how far this goes back. Goes back 2017. You saved them for the save file back when the cloud infrastructure and Sony and Microsoft had your save file on set game. If you had a big enough profile, they would give that to you in terms of stuff that you did via the game. And I had it on a USB that you can hook up the device where a standard like SD card thing, like for the PlayStation 3 on saves that I copied. I didn't want to play those games over again, but I didn't have a profile with the right email address at the time. But on the PS3, it was different from the PS4. Like, you could play any game with any save as long as it's saved. But on the PS3, they locked it to set account. You can't have somebody go to prison off stuff that's old, stuff that you don't have like angry video game nerds set up like a bunch of games that all the stuff can be easily bought at vintage stock. Do people think that everything was stolen, but then set last name on receipts and stuff. I had a locked video from Resident Evil 7 that I bought with Evan when he bought the Yakuza 0, but he shouldn't have gave it away to his nephew because his nephew either doesn't have it anymore or basically they're locked out of their PlayStation account like how I was, because he figured it was pointless to basically play these games because he almost didn't graduate back then and graduated. And I had surgery around the time that I was in Shawnee Mission North with them after I transferred out of Alta Vista because they kept hassling me. I'd said things saying that all sorts of like negative shit that at one point in time figured it was pointless to be there if they all didn't believe in you. That they wrote an article about you, that nobody had your back at the end of the day. And it was discriminatory against a person. I know it's back then, but I know there's people on the news that get broadcasted back then that had set thing promised to them and had weird surgeries or weird ailments that they get fucked out of their stuff too, that they go crying to the news. But nobody listened to me back then. They could have been prosecuted, but from the way it was malpractice in terms of saying that you should tough up all those football players, but they all get paid money at the end of the day, where they get paid all sorts of stuff for being in set organization, where my set thing was just basically for writing grants for set companies that tell you not to put electronics in their grant making. And now I know it's different to where they have people that live in with disabilities like myself that play video games, where I can't really get fucked out of anything because I could say that and show receipts of what other people get away with in learning disability chairs and wheelchairs and stuff to still play video games. And mostly the entire family served in the military, to where it would look bad on them. Like, I don't know how to, like, you get fucked out of something when you had set photo of basically two people serving in the war or having been served in World War II. I think it was like 1960s or 1950s. Then wanted me to be a game designer via said company off another company that was basically a jest of the same company. Wrote to you, but had with my transcripts from 2006 and 7 was able to go forth and do something similar to how they do back then with people with like the exchange, like foreign exchange people. But I didn't really know at the time anything that would seem adjusted to being like in a hospital and going out and basically being in a trance for 2 years afterwards. And then Andrew said they should have extended your schooling to 2008 was I was supposed to graduate, but they supposedly gave it to me early in 2006 or 7 because I was able to proceed through a test that was given to me at a school in between Shawnee Mission and a GED school or whatever, so I had an equivalent of 12th grade. It may seem daunting to be called an idiot, a scumbag, all sorts of other shit because of what's on you, but I hear stuff during the day. I had people walk across talking shit that they just do that to get off notoriety off someone, like they do in terms of if you made some progress in life, they'll fucking scold you down and make you seem like you're nothing, like how that Chester Benningfield guy off Linkin Park singer did the Breaking the Habit song where he was investigated off something that he didn't do and they framed him, but he killed himself midway through. And how that sort of describes the whole case scenario off stuff that people blame you for. And there was someone that went to trolley trails and stuff, but I was with Evan, and so Evan drove me, and we didn't exercise back then enough to where I could prevent being diabetic, but would be framed like how that Art School Confidentials movie had the guy was set murderer, but that's not how it was in terms of stuff that I just watched the movie. And people that watch those fucked up things on HNL or whatever the fuck, the forensic shit, that wasn't how it was in terms of nothing really matched, because I don't know if at the time we were just exercising to lose weight and I got fucked over by a drink that I drank that rose my A1C up, or had some kind of thing where it made my health bad in terms of stuff that I know it's not anyone else's fault for me to go with a person that they had a relative of theirs had a blue bag in their set drink, so I don't know if they're doing stuff to family that had stuff that maybe it was an accident, maybe it wasn't, maybe because of COVID. I blame COVID because they can't really put you in jail if you should be at a hospital. And I know that there's a protocol that they're supposed to check you out of hospital, but I get cleared twice in my life that I posted that via the lawnmower thing. And I wasn't lazy how the neighbors made me be a bum, but then people tell you all sorts of things, and it's because it's the stuff that I had surgeries, and they call me a fag and shit, and they're just fucked in the head. I wish I had a lawyer that'd hear me out. The stuff that they say, it's basically, they're just psycho. They do worse stuff to people. They have court cases where they take their houses away, and they end up siding with the fucking psychos, and they get their house taken away. It's very trivial for a guy that thinks he knows everything to fuck over people that are in way less condition to go through fucking what they had gone through, and I could blackmail them off stuff that you look up and just hope that it doesn't fall back on you off stuff that they basically just sit there and watch you all day. And I don't know if they have it filmed, but they just sit there and watch the whole entire cul-de-sac. And we moved because of the stuff that I had done to me wasn't right. That's why I said there was no justice in this world. I sat there and had filmed me playing Gran Turismo in that room. Wasn't really bothering anyone. I didn't know how they go back, and if you make it to something, they get mad at you. Like how that article was written out to me back 2004 to 5. None of them liked how it was written out, and I transferred out, but figured it wasn't really worth for why did they have me go through that. It was a waste of time on my part. I could have been doing something else besides that, and blame the world's organizations for said thing that they had that no idea that what you've gone through. They even had people that were homeschooled in that program. So I don't know how they go forth and choose people in terms of stuff that they just go and you just write grants for a set amount of years, and it was like a college preparatory program. I know I sound like a broken record, but they had people that on the news during the time frame that had said weird surgeries themselves, like they had to go forth and have a surgery in between high school and didn't graduate. And so I had 4th to 12th grade and had something that said that they should honor if there's loopholes in certain states they have to where you can say that that person had said thing wrong with them and got to the 12th grade, and they honor it because they promised you that via the wording of it. So if it was in writing, then they should honor it off something that's like burn notice in terms of you're stuck in a place where. That's why I like that stuff via the stuff they used to show on USA, because it was like how that thing was like you're in a state where they can't really physically come after you because they give you that set thing and you have set photo stamp copies of everything and you would show that off. That's why I did that via my Facebook profile. If I had died, if they had did something to it, or if you can't get the information. But I know somebody that really did have terms of service, like they should have allowed set thing that like you should be able to go and use that information and be able to go forth and have a life after high school. And I know it's been since 20 some years after, or 16, 17, 18, 19, 22 now. So it's that thing that you feel like ashamed of even be like alive because the stuff it posts on about you and they tell you a bunch of weird shit and make you out to be a creepy dude, and you don't really do anything that bad. And you had evidence of stuff at one point in time of having ADT on your house at 2 places in terms of stuff that they'd watched you. And if I was some sort of ass or creepy dude, they would prosecute you in terms of stuff that you had it for like 3 years since 2017 through 19, and then we moved and I had all that on my Facebook profile that I'd hope the 5 people that liked my picture would help me out in terms of stuff, but I figured it's too daunting to explain like I explained without any repercussions done to me until after my parents passed, that they would have some fucked up court case that there's nothing on my background check but just discriminatory against a person who had elements and stuff wrong with them. And there's people that cut up and do all sorts of other fucked up shit with the same stuff I'm on that get away with stuff. If I was such a creepy dude, they would be like all sorts of like shit going on where there'd be multiple people in the background talking. And I know that my parents live here with me, but I can't really go forth and say a bunch of weird shit about a person that they don't know about, that they don't know enough about, that you post what you post, but you're not sitting there collecting things from people. Like you're not having a hard drive is filled with video game saves, and I don't have space. I shown what was on my Dell and didn't have anything really that bad on it, but figured take showers and take your top off and take a photo, because if something does occur, at least they know you look like that in terms of stuff. And they exercise and it isn't enough in terms of being able to beat diabetes and had set ailments and shit that was wrong with you, and you try to exercise, eat right, drink right, but none of that shit works in terms of your genetics or being poisoned by someone who didn't care. I spend an hour on here and I know I hear stuff from like all sorts of like the woods lead back and you hear people talking. I know you can't like have it to where you don't hear anybody, but if you two themselves didn't want to take my profile down and had somebody concerned, and you try to use the resources and they try to make it life hard on somebody that had all those surgeries off their advice, couldn't you go back and try to sue them? And they try to make it seem like you're totally like screwed over by the organization that set promise, and I doubt they could physically like fuck you over in terms of why they allowed you to walk out of it in the first place, and knowing that it was recorded, and you're not like fucking saying all sorts of like you're not posting it really on everything, and what you had you don't really repost, and it's far too long ago, 2015, to go back after your parents passed and say you're having a proceeding to get sued by people that injured you off stuff that they just were really like fucking out there with the shit that they said. It made it seem like they were fucking notorious for fucking over people and saying a bunch of shit off things and being real like daunting in terms of stuff that they do to people. You look way better than the person that fucked you over in terms of stuff that they just fucking not all there in the head. And I know I can sue them, that's why they're fucking weird with me, and they try to say they can put you in because they know people that are crooked, but they can't fucking really do that because you can prosecute them and record a law off documents and stuff even if they don't like you at said hospitals anymore. But it's their fault for allowing it to happen in the first place. That's all I'm gonna say.